Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really compelling article from criminologist Dr. S. Castell-Britton. It tackles a tough question. How does a place as beautiful as the Archipelago of San Andrés, a true paradise, end up facing such a serious crime problem?
Because that's exactly what's happening. Beneath that picture-perfect surface, a real crisis is unfolding. It's threatening the entire community, and as Dr. Britton explains, the reasons for it go way deeper than you'd think, tying directly into his really fascinating identity restoration theory.
Okay, let's get right into the numbers from the article, because honestly, they don't just tell a story, they shout it. We're not talking about a slow decline here. This is more like a free fall.
So check this out. According to Colombia's National Institute of Legal Medicine, back in 2018, the homicide rate was already high at 36.9 per 100,000 people. That's already cause for concern, right?
Well, hold on. Just 2 years later, that number had completely skyrocketed to 59. I mean, that is a huge and frankly terrifying leap in such a short amount of time.
And it gets worse. By 2023, it hit a staggering 72. Just to put that into perspective for you, that rate made San Andrés the single most violent place in the entire country.
And look, it's not just homicides. Other serious crimes are just exploding. In 2022 alone, theft shot up by 50%. That's 50 from the year before. The situation is just critical right across the board.
So the big question is, what is going on? What's driving this? Well, the article points to a few complex factors that, they're the ones people usually talk about.
Yeah, it's kind of like the perfect storm. You've got the island's location, making it a hotspot for drug trafficking. Then there's a serious lack of jobs, which leaves young people pretty vulnerable to getting pulled into gangs. And on top of all that, you have deep-rooted corruption that just paralyzes any real effort to fix things.
Right. All of those issues are absolutely huge, and they definitely play a role. But here's where the article gets really interesting. Dr. Castell-Britton makes the case that there's one critical factor that's been almost entirely ignored, one that might actually be the fuel for all the other problems.
And that one crucial, overlooked factor is overpopulation. This is the idea that the article suggests could be the key to understanding the whole entire situation.
Exactly. This is really the heart of the argument. So let's break down how having just too many people packed into such a small area can create, the perfect breeding ground for crime.
So just to give you a sense of the scale here, we're talking about an island with roughly 80,000 people living on it.
And what that means is a population density of 1,600 people for every single square kilometer. The article makes it clear that is way higher than most other islands in the Caribbean. I mean, that is just an incredible amount of pressure on a very small piece of land. Now, the author breaks down how this intense density impacts the island in three major ways. And this is exactly where Dr. Britton's identity restoration theory becomes so important. First, you get this fierce, intense competition for everything. Jobs, a place to live, even basic services. That alone creates a ton of social tension. Second, with so few real opportunities, it's no wonder young people get drawn into illegal activities. And third, when an area is that crowded, it's just plain easier for criminal activity to slip through the cracks. But the identity restoration theory suggests this goes beyond just practical problems. It argues that these conditions create a deep psychological crisis for the community. Think about it. When people, especially the native Rizal population, feel like their culture, their land, and their whole future is being squeezed out by this overwhelming pressure, some might turn to crime. And not just for the money, but as a twisted way to take back some control, some sense of belonging and identity. It becomes a distorted form of resistance.
So, understanding that psychological root of the problem is a huge first step. But the article doesn't just leave us there. It actually lays out a path forward, proposing some real concrete strategies to tackle this crisis at its source.
The author lays out a plan with a few key parts. We're talking about better urban planning to get a handle on the growth, creating sustainable jobs that actually empower local youth, really cracking down on corruption by making institutions stronger, and, developing a clear plan to resettle illegal residents and repeat offenders.
And this quote from Dr. Castell-Britton really just says it all, doesn't it? It's a call to action. It's a plea for the island's leaders to stop guessing and start using science and data to find solutions that look at all these complex factors, including the deep psychological toll on the people who live there.
And that leaves us with this final, urgent question. The future safety and soul of the archipelago really seems to depend on whether its leaders are willing to look at all the pieces of the puzzle, especially the ones like overpopulation and this resulting crisis of identity that have been ignored for far too long.